Good morning. Welcome back to Cleaning is My Therapy. My name is Jamie and I haven't done one of these in a while, and it's what's for dinner. So today I will be sharing how I make chicken pot pie, and you will need like a cup, I think a cup and a half. I'll have to look at my recipe, but you'll need like a cup and a half of chicken broth. So, and I didn't have chicken broth. So if you don't have chicken broth, but you want to make this meal super easy to make your own homemade chicken broth, and I'm going to show you guys how to make that real quick. When it comes to making your homemade chicken broth, I keep a freezer bag in my freezer, and I just put all of my onion scraps, celery scraps, and carrots. And if you've got fresh garlic, you can put your garlic scraps in there as well, and it also gives your broth a really good flavor. But I've got my stock pot on the stove right now, and it's got my chicken in there. So and my chicken is going to cook on low, cook all day long, and then the chicken will be ready and my broth will be like really delicious. So we're just gonna pour this into there.
You told me more than once to show you my intention.
But when cooking your chicken broth, you need to make sure it's chicken on the bone. You need the bones for your broth. Even like when you're wanting to make chicken broth, if you just save, like when you're done cooking dinner and you know you've picked all the meat off the bones with a rotisserie chicken, or you know a whole chicken, or even chicken legs and stuff, and you just pick all the meat off for whatever recipes, just save your bones and just put them in a freezer bag. And then when you have enough chicken bones and you're ready to make your broth, when you've got all of your vegetables and your bones, you can store everything in your stock pot. Or if you even have a huge crock pot, you can do that, make it in that as well. I've never have, but my mom my mom used to do, that's how she used to make hers. She would just have, she had this ginormous crock pot, and she would put everything in there and just let it cook all day. And like she would start it that night, and then it would cook all night and then all day, and then by that afternoon the broth was done and it was delicious. So it was that pretty, you know, golden color. But enough about broth. I was just, you know, telling you guys different ways you can do that. But I'm just going to stick my bag back in the freezer and save it for onion scraps, because I will have some onion scraps, because the recipe does call for some celery and onions, and I have celery in my freezer. So I will be pulling that out last, because I'm going to saute all of that up. And so yeah. Okay, so this is done. Oh, I'm fogging up here. But my chicken broth is done. It has been cooking on low all day long. So now I'm just going to pull my chicken out, and then the celery and the carrot bits and celery bits, I'm going to pull out and put them to the side, and feed those to the chickens later after they cool down. But the onions, I will pull those out and trash those, because you're not supposed to give your chickens. Pull the chicken out and put them on a plate and let them cool down for a little while. And then I'm going to take the celery and carrot bits out and put them on a plate and just let them cool down, and then I will feed those to the chickens later. There's no point of wasting it when they can benefit from it as well. And then the onions, I will pull those out and just throw those away, because you're not supposed to give your chickens onions or onions and garlic. You're not supposed to give them those. So I will say this, on this day when I was filming making the chicken pot pie, I was explaining things, I was talking to the camera and everything. But in the next 2 days, 2 meals, I don't do a lot of talking. One day the kids were home and they were just yelling and arguing and fighting, and then the next day I just wasn't feeling that great. Okay, so now I need to strain all of that. So I just grabbed another pot and I've got this strainer. I'm just going to anyways. So I got another pot. All my bowls are dirty. They're in the fridge with leftovers in it, but I got my strainer. I'm just going to stick that inside my pot, and then I'm just going to strain all of this.
Kinda simple, kinda wishful about things, and you're kinda simple, but like a pistol, you fire. Sometimes you get under my skin like a lover, and sometimes you don't wanna come back 'cause you'd rather stay out with another, talking to strangers and make out spontaneous.
And also, if you have a cheesecloth, you can strain it once more with a cheesecloth. I don't have a cheesecloth right now, so I'm literally just going to do the best I can. But if you're going to can this, you're going to want to make sure you use a cheesecloth to get like the little bits that are just floating in there. But I'm going to freeze mine, so it's going to be just fine, and plus I need some of it for dinner tonight. And then I will also keep some in the fridge for the next couple of days for different meals I might need to use it for, but then the rest of it I'm just going to freeze. Okay, so now I am about to get all of my broth jarred up, and I'm just going to put my jars in the freezer. And yes, you can freeze the chicken broth in mason jars. You just have to make sure your chicken broth is completely cool. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up all of my jars and get I'm doing 4 cups of broth to each jar. That's usually that's what comes in your average box of broth. So I am just going to get those all done up in the jars and get the lids, and I'm gonna let them sit on the counter until they're completely cool, and then I'm gonna put them in the freezer, and they will be good in the freezer 3 to 4 months. So I will have all that used up by then, because it is starting to cool off here, and I do make a lot of soups in the winter, so it will all be used before it's not usable. So you can store it 3 to 4 months in your freezer. And my measuring cup is a 2-cup measuring cup. So I'm just going to get that done up. And which is kind of perfect. It kind of holds just enough. So, and you are going to want to make sure all of your jars are sterilized. I washed mine with hot soapy water, and then I just boiled them just to make sure they're all like good and sterilized. I might go back and add more broth to my jars. So if you want to make these shelf stable, you can water bath them, but you have to use them within like the first 2 to 3 weeks, because they will not last. Your seals will start popping. But to make sure they're completely shelf stable, you will have to pressure can them. I don't even know how to pressure can. I do not have a pressure canner. I just water bath can a lot of my stuff. But just to make these stable, that I can use these within the next few months, I will just pop those in my freezer. But I just wanted to show you guys how easy it was to make some homemade chicken broth that you can just put in your freezer and you will have it for a few months for different meals, especially right now with it getting kind of cold. And it's just easier to make it. It tastes so good, and it just makes everything really delicious. And with you making it yourself, you know what's in it. I don't add salt to mine because I do salt and pepper a lot of everything I cook. So I don't like to add any extra salt. And plus, when I'm making dog food for my dogs, I like to use the homemade broth as well because there's no salt and nothing else added to it. It is completely healthy and good for you. So I was actually able to get 6 jars of broth, probably a little more, but I didn't have enough broth in the pan for a whole nother jar, so I just kind of poured it in the rest of those. I mean, if you need the broth, you go and obviously measure out what you need. But I was able to get 6 jars, so I am going to show you guys how to properly put your lids on and get these sealed up and ready for your freezer. I'm gonna take some white distilled vinegar, and you're just gonna pour some in a bowl. Just a little. Gonna wet your rag or paper towel. I don't have no paper towels, so I'm just gonna go around and wipe my rims very well. And after I got done wiping all of the rims are down with white distilled vinegar, the lids, I make sure those have been boiled and sterilized as well, because you want to make sure everything is completely clean and sterilized, because you don't want mold, bacteria, or nothing growing in there or even getting in there. So make sure everything is clean and sterile, and then start adding your rings. And I tighten them down to finger tight. So like I barely even just tighten those down. So once I got all the rings on there, I will pick them up and get them tightened down better to like tighten finger tight, so you don't over tighten them.
I don't wanna seem all rude, but I can't remember where.
So you need about 2.5 tablespoons of butter and a heaping tablespoon of minced garlic. And I didn't have fresh garlic. I had ran out, so I'm just using the minced garlic I had in the fridge. And then you're going to dice up a whole onion. I just used a yellow onion, but you can use whatever onions you prefer, but you're going to need a whole one. And then about a cup of chopped celery and a cup of chopped carrots. These were the only carrots I had. So they were already thinly chopped, but I just broke them up into smaller pieces just so they would saute up a little bit better. So I'm just going to saute all of this up until it is good and soft, because it's not going to take that long to cook in the oven. At this time, I was talking to my son because they had literally just walked through. You will add 1/3 cup of flour and just mix that in with the vegetables really well, just to cook the raw flour taste out of it. And then you're going to add 1 3/4 cups of your chicken stock. And you're just going to mix that in very well just to get it to start thickening up. And I'm going to add 1/2 cup of half and half and get all that mixed in. And then I'm going to add my frozen peas. I just added the whole bag of peas in there and got all those mixed up very well. And then I'm going to add my chicken. And I just used salt and pepper. That is all I used. It already has tons of flavor from the celery, the onions, the carrots, the chicken broth that we just made, and the chicken. So it already has all that good flavor. So it just needed some salt and pepper. And when it comes to salt and peppering and seasoning everything in these next 3 meals, I season with my heart or to taste. I don't measure out my seasonings. I just seasoned until, it tastes good or I feel like that's enough. So that's just how I measure out my seasonings. I just measure with my heart or to taste. But once I get my peas and my chicken added in, I'm just going to get all that stirred up and mixed very well. And then I'm going to get it ready for my pan.
Right now I'm standing in the corner. I see you from across the room. It's kinda crowded here, but I know you see me too. Everybody's singing, oh, everybody's singing, oh.
So once I get my chicken pot pie mixture into my pan, I am just using canned biscuits to put on the top of my chicken pot pie, and that is what my crust is going to be, is some biscuits. I'm not good at making pie crust, so, and this was just one of those days I really didn't feel like fooling with trying to make it. So this is just another way I make it, and my family loves it. But this is just like a super quick and simple, easy meal to make if you're just in a hurry and you need to get stuff done. It don't really take no time at all, especially if you use like a rotisserie chicken or leftover chicken. This literally takes no time at all to make. But I do just cook it until the biscuits are done because everything else is being cooked. It is done. So I just cook it until my biscuits are golden brown and done. Okay, so for meal number 2, I am making potato soup, and I am cutting up about 8 slices of bacon. I just chop those up very finely just to get them fried up because I will be adding this into my soup a little bit later, but I am definitely going to be using the bacon fat from it to flavor this soup tonight.
Right now I'm standing in the corner. I see you from across the room. It's kinda crowded here, but I know you see me too. Everybody's singing, oh, everybody's singing, oh. I don't know what it is about you. It must be in the way you move. Just say you want me to. We got nothing to lose. You're looking so old.
And I cut up 1 onion, and I'm just going to get it sauteed up, and I'm also going to add in a tablespoon of minced garlic as well. And I'm just going to saute all these up just until they're softened, and then I am going to add in my potatoes, and I used about 5 rustic potatoes. You can use Yukon Gold's potatoes. Yukon Gold potatoes are normally what I use because I just like those a little bit better, but all I had on hand was some rustic potatoes. So I had about 5 or 6 potatoes I chopped up. I am getting tongue-tied, y'all. Once you get all of your potatoes peeled, you're going to want to wash them. Wash them really good, and then put them into your pan. I am using a Dutch oven. I love my Dutch oven. I use it all the time for soups, everything. But I'm just going to like crisp them up a little bit in there with the onions and the garlic and some of the bacon fat. And now I'm just going to add in the chicken broth that we made the day before. I did end up putting all of it in the freezer. I thought I had left one out, but I didn't. But not a big deal. And I'm just going to add in 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour and just get that mixed in because that is what's going to help thicken it up. I meant to add that before I added my chicken stock, but I kind of did it a little ass backwards. But make sure you put your flour in there before you add your chicken broth. It still turned out fantastic. I added 4 cups of chicken broth, and then I added 1.5 cups of milk, whole milk. Well, you don't have to use whole milk because I use 2%. And then I just salt and peppered it, and I'm just going to let it simmer for about 45 minutes until all of the potatoes are pretty soft. And I added a little bit more of that bacon fat into this and just mixed it in just for some extra flavor. And I'm just going to put the top on here and just let it simmer for 45 minutes.
Why you wanna let me go now? Are you saying that to change your mind? For love or pity, let me know now. Cause your love made me go blind. What am I hearing? Saying you're moving back. When were you gonna tell me that? What am I hearing? It feels like a heart attack.
So now I'm just going to add a cup of half and half to this and just mix it all in, and it just makes it a little bit more creamier. So I'm just going to get it mixed up very well, and then I give it a taste test just to see if it had plenty of salt and pepper, and I just added a little bit more salt and pepper to it, and then got all that mixed up very well. And then I added some chives to it, and the chives were fresh from my garden. So I added some of those to that as well as the bacon bits. And then I just mixed it all up, and I let it simmer for like 5-10 more minutes after I added the bacon bits and the chives to it. And then I topped it all off with some more bacon as everybody was making their plates. But this is just one of my favorite meals in the winter.
You look at me like I'm crazy when I shut my feelings out. You look at me like I'm different. Still you stay cause you feel something real. Get so lost in my moments. Doesn't mean I don't need you.
Okay, so for meal 3, I am making spaghetti for dinner, but I am making some homemade spaghetti sauce. I was out of spaghetti sauce, so I will be making this from scratch. And I'm going to be adding I had a half a bag of diced onions and peppers. So I just added that into my Dutch oven, and then I'm going to add about 2 heaping tablespoons of minced garlic as well. And I'm just going to get all that sauteed up very well. And then in a little bit, I also will be adding fresh tomatoes from my garden. And I didn't have enough tomatoes, so I did add a couple of cans of diced tomatoes as well. But to make your homemade spaghetti sauce, this is something that actually takes about a half a day to make because you're going to want it to cook down. And I guess there's like quicker ways you can make spaghetti sauce. But this is the way I make it because I like mine to be really flavorful, so mine does cook for a long time. I do turn my oven down and I just let it simmer for about 5-6 hours. And then I add the meat and the noodles later. You will see all that later. I am getting ahead of myself. Sorry. But I'm just going to get all this mixed up really quick. And I'm going to add in some garlic salt and Italian seasoning. And like I said before, I don't measure. I measure with my heart. I just add until I feel like that's enough seasoning. So that's just what I'm going to start off with. And here is the tomatoes from the garden. They're yellow tomatoes, red tomatoes, and a couple of green ones. The green ones weren't completely right, but I didn't want to leave them out there any longer for the bugs to get them. But I'm just going to get them all put in here. And the yellow tomatoes, the ones that are like yellow and green, those are a oh my goodness, I can't remember what they were now. A yellow pear tomato. That's what those were. And I don't remember what the red ones are, but these are the canned diced tomatoes that I'm just going to add in. And I add about 3 or 4 of those. And then I'm just going to let them cook down because I just want it to all cook down. And longer they cook, they do thicken up. This spaghetti sauce will thicken up throughout the day. And I'm just going to add more, I'm just going to add more garlic, salt, Italian seasoning, parsley flakes, and bay leaves. I'm just going to add all that in and just mix it up. And I'm going to turn the stove down to low, and I'm just going to let it simmer all day. And those are fresh chives from the garden that I dehydrated. So I added all that in, and I was just smelling it because you could just smell all of the seasonings and everything. It just smells so good. But I'm just going to get all that seasonings mixed up very well, and then I'm going to add my lid to this and just let it simmer.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break.
So I did add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar to the sauce because I did use some canned tomatoes, and I was just trying to cut down on the acidity of the tomatoes as well. And it gives it a little bit like a sweeter taste too. And I'm just going to get this mixed up and let it continue to simmer. So after they simmered for about 5-6 hours, right here I am just pureeing all of it up because I don't like a real chunky sauce at all. If you like a chunkier sauce, you could just take your little potato masher and just mash it up, or use an emergent blender to mix some of it up. But I don't have an emergent blender, so I'm just putting them in my blender, and I'm just getting it all pureed up, and then I let it simmer for a little while longer at this point too. Okay, so now I'm just adding everything back into my Dutch oven, and I added more garlic seasoning, parsley flakes, bay leaves, and a little bit more chives. And you're going to see me add like 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Add 1. I would just add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar and then mix it up and give it a taste, and then go from there, because you may not like yours as sweet, but I added like 1 tablespoon too many. So mine was a little sweeter than what I wanted, but to avoid that, you can just add 1 tablespoon in and stir it up and give it a taste test. And if you need more, add more. So I just put the lid back on it and let it simmer for another 5 minutes. So now I am getting the hamburger meat fried up, and I added garlic, Italian seasoning, and my chives, and basil, and parsley flakes. I added all that in with my ground beef and just fried it up, and I strained it all, and then I just added it into my sauce, And I'm going to get the noodles drained and add that into my sauce as well. And once I get all that incorporated together, I let it simmer for about another 30 minutes. Just to make sure it was like good and flavorful, and this was so good. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys like these kind of videos, let me know down below, and I will love to make some more what's for dinner type of videos for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday and fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.